Parshat Korach, and this is really an amazing week. Rashi starts off the Parsha, and he says, Parsha zu yofen nidreshes b'medrash Rebbe Tanchuma. There's a medrash Tanchuma from one of the Chazal, and he explains this Parsha very well. It's the only Parsha that Rashi says something like that, because this whole story with Korach and what happened and what went on is so amazing and so unbelievable and so frightening that you really need a lot of input to understand what's going on with Korach. First, the Gemara says, why was he called Karach? Because he was Kareach, he bald. In other words, he was left bald on all sides. Right? As a man, he was one of the top Levium in the generation, one of the top people to serve in the Beis HaMikdash. He was from Bnei Kohos. He could have carried the Oren Kodesh or any of the other Klei HaKodesh, that were the menorah, the shulchan, whatever. And he was really on top. The man was brilliant. The Gemara says he was one of the 3 richest people in the world. Right? Everyone left Egypt with 90 mules full of treasures. He had 300 mules that carried the keys to his treasures. 300 mules that carried the keys to it. This was the wealth of Korach. It was unbelievable. So he had power, he had money, he had fame, and he blew it all. Right? It's like Trump. Right? He had money, he had power, he lost it all. Right now he's Putin. What is he? Right? He had everything there in Russia, right? He blew it all. The whole world was against him now. Korach. Right? So he starts off the Parsha saying, Vayikach Korach. The Targum, Rashi brings it, Yispalig Korach. Korach split himself off from Klal Yisrael. Says to Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, we're all Jews. We're all equal. Right? We're all equal. We're all Jews. What makes you better than me? What makes what you say the law? Right? This is what Korach said. Kichola Eda Kulam Kadoshim. They're all holy. They're all beautiful people. And all the Jews are beautiful people. I mean, you hear what goes on in the Knesset, the hatred that they have for Yiddishkeit. You wonder where it comes from. Fact is, it comes from Korach. It comes from Korach. Korach was the first one to stand up on his own. I mean, the Jews rebelled all the time, right? The Chazal say that the Jews are a rebellious nature. They got to fight. They got to, you take a look at any cause that there is in the world today, right? The Jews were at the forefront of these causes. Communism, right? Who made communism? Lenin was the guy, but who made it? Right? Well, Tolstoy, what was his, not Tolstoy? Forgot his name. The guy,
Karl Marx.
Karl Marx, well, he started that before, but there was a guy, he had to run away from Russia. Stalin killed him in Mexico. I forgot it. Bronstein. What was his name? Trotsky, right? Trotsky and guys like him. There were a lot of guys like him. They were Jews, and they were in the forefront of communism. Where does that come from? Where did it come to something like this, right? And we're getting back to Karl Marx, which is what Korach was. Do you understand the influence that Karl Marx had on billions of people? Could you fathom that? Karl Marx got China, Russia, all those countries to be communist. He started it. Karl, who was he? His father was a Jew who converted. He baptized and whatever. And so Karl Marx grew up, no Jewishness, nothing, but he was full of hate. His problem was it. Korach also. He wanted power. He wanted more power. It wasn't enough for him what he had. Right? Hamat became B'nai Levi. You know, you're Levium. You have an exalted position in Klal Yisrael. I mean, all this, find in Rabbi Nachman's writings, Rabbi Nosson's writings, the rebellious nature of Korach was such that he took 250 of the heads of Sanhedrin from the Shevet Reuven, and he got them all to rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu. You're talking about Sanhedrin. These are the smartest guys. These are the biggest learners, the biggest Talmidei Chachamim. And he got them all to rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu. Isn't that amazing? And that's what Karl Marx did. He got all these bright people, all those brilliant Jews, and he got them involved with them. And same thing it is with almost every cult that you'll find today in the States. Jews for Yashka, and there's Jews all over. They're in the forefront. Where does it come from? Korach. What was Korach's problem? Power, honor, money he didn't lack. He was richer than everybody else in Klal Yisrael. Right? So what was his problem? His problem was the authority of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what it was. The authority, the koyach that Moshe Rabbeinu had to go up to heaven, to bring down the Torah, tell the guys, this is what we're doing. Go back to Egypt. The Jews were in Egypt. Along comes Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, okay, guys, I know I wasn't here, I didn't suffer with you, but I got to tell you, Hashem told me to take you out, so I'm going to take you out. He was not a democratically elected leader. He walked in, he said, guys, I'm here to take you out. I'm your leader. I'm your head, right? That's what a lot of people don't like, right? Korach was the first to speak up against that kind of authority. Moshe Rabbeinu had the authority to do what he wanted. He could split the sea. I mean, he did split the sea. He brought the 10 Makos. Hashem gave him that power. He was the tzaddik. The problem that Korach had was he didn't want to put himself under the tzaddik. We said it last week when we talked about the spies. The Arizal says that the spies, the neshamas, were greater than the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. They were greater. But they would have had to give up their position in order to enter the land. Power. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Right? These are sayings. They're true. So Korach rebelled against Moshe Rabbeinu. And that was his biggest mistake. Right? Because there is a tzaddik who runs the world. There is a tzaddik who brings us knowledge of Hashem. There is a tzaddik who is capable of bringing us knowledge of Hashem. And our problem is, do we want to listen to it or not? Do we want to accept an authority above us, right? People mostly shy away or reject authority, right? Nobody wants to have someone tell them what to do. And that's what happened with Korach. So that's the story with him. And Korach was a brilliant guy. Rashi says it, Korach shepikei achoya, ma'aro l'shtus hazeh. Korach, who was brilliant, he was brilliant. All right, what was his brilliance? Well, he knew how to learn, right? So what happened? Gemara says he came to Moshe Rabbeinu with the people. Vayakel aleihem Korach es kol ha'eda. Korach took the entire nation and he rebelled them against Moshe Rabbeinu. It wasn't just Korach, and it wasn't just his 250 people. It was he ended up energizing, or that's the wrong word, but he ended up convincing Klal Yisrael to go against Moshe Rabbeinu. He said whatever he does for himself. He take the leadership, and his brother Aaron, he gave him to be the Kohen Gadol. Right? So we have to stop this kind of nepotism and all this kind of stuff. We got to take care of Yiddishkeit the way we understand it, right? Which is what the Reform did, right? They rebelled. You'll notice Reb Nosson writes in the Likutei Halachos that wherever there is a rebellion in Klal Yisrael, the rebellion is against the rabbinic authorities, right? Go back to the Beis HaMikdash, right? Or go back to the first Beis HaMikdash. They rebelled against the prophets. Prophets told them, this is what you can do, the Nevi'im. And they rebelled against them. Second Beis HaMikdash, after Shimon HaTzadik passed away, they had the Baisosim and the Tzdokim and the Baisosim, the Sadducees, right? What they do? They accepted the written law, but they rebelled against the oral law, against the rabbinic tradition. And that's how it's been throughout Jewish history. Wherever you'll find people that went away from Yiddishkeit, is because they rebelled against the rabbinical tradition. And the Reform, right? They tell you that they accept the written law. They tell you that. It's not true. But they tell you they accept the written law, but they don't accept the oral law. Halacha is evolving. You can do whatever you want today, right? There's no laws of kashrus, right? And I asked the guy once, tell me, you hold from the written law, Shabbos you're not supposed to work. You don't hold from the rabbinical translation of what that means. So what work do you forbid on Shabbos? Tell me, what work do you forbid on Shabbos? There's nothing, right? They don't forbid anything. You can do whatever you want. That's the Yiddishkeit to them. So the rebellion is against rabbinical Judaism. That's what Korach did. And the thing was like this. Korach said, like this, Moshe Rabbeinu, he came to him with 3 questions. The Gemara is from Sanhedrin. 3 questions he came to him. The first one, well, if you have a house that has only Sfarim in it, a room with only Sfarim, take this room, fill it with Sfarim. Do you need a mezuzah? Do you? Yeah. Moshe Rabbeinu said yes. He said if 2 parshios that are in the mezuzah are good enough for the whole room, if you have a room full of Sfarim, that doesn't work, doesn't help. Moshe Rabbeinu said no. It's a dray, it's a pilpul. Then he said he took the people, his 250 guardians or whatever you want to call them, and he dressed them all with clothes of tchelis. Don't forget, he was super wealthy. He gave them these clothes, and he said to them, he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, if they have these clothes of tchelis, do they have to put tchelis in the tzitzis? Right? You're wearing it, right? Do they have to, if you have a cloak of tchelis, do I have to put tchelis in it? Right? Moshe Rabbeinu said yes. He says, if 1 string of tchelis is enough to make me exempt, why can't a whole cloth of it? The 3rd question is even more astonishing. The 3rd question is, the Pasuk says, by Mitzorah. When you have a Mitzorah, you have a leper. If the leprosy is in a certain area, it's considered impure. But if that leprosy spreads to the entire body, then it's considered tahor. since it's a leprosy that covers the entire body, so that cannot be considered an affliction of leprosy because the whole body is that way. It says, so how does it happen that way? Anyway, these are the three questions that Korach challenged Moshe Rabbeinu. And there's a lot of other questions, but the Torah says this is the law. Torah says this is the law. Reb Nosson has many teachings on these questions, on these ideas. The idea behind it is that there were so much hatred that went in to rebel against the authority of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's what undid Korach. That's what did him out. So, first Moshe Rabbeinu says, take each one a ketoris, and let it see if it'll blossom. Right? Only Aaron's blossomed. So everyone took their staff. Right? And then Korach kept on defying Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu said like this: Imbriya Yivra Hashem. You want to go against Hashem? You want to destroy Klal Yisrael? Is that what you want to do? You go against Hashem, you destroy. Look at all the assimilation that's out there. Why is that assimilation? Because the so-called rabbis are willing to officiate in the church at a marriage between a Jew and a Catholic, or a Jew and a Muslim. They have them here. Whatever's going on, these things are just horrifying. But it's all rabbinical Judaism that the rebellion is against. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, okay, enough is enough. If it's happened that Hashem already created a mouth for the earth, so it's okay. If not, Hashem is going to create an opening in the earth now. A mouth in the earth is going to swallow you all. He swallowed them. Right? He opened up the thing. Korach, Dosan, and Aviram, and all their families, and all their wealth, everything that belonged to them, right? The earth became kind of like an angle from their tents to the opening, and in front of everybody, they were swallowed up alive. And they're still alive down there. Right? The Gemara in Bava Basra tells the story that Rabbi Baba Chana, an Arab, told him, come, I'll show you where Korach was swallowed up. I'll show you the place. He came there, and he hears a voice calling out, right? Moshe Emes, there's a song, Moshe Emes V'Toyrosa, right? The song that comes from this Gemara. They're saying, Moshe Emes V'Toyrosa Emes V'Heim Badoya, they're the liars. Korach was the liar. Till today, they're alive down here in the belly of the earth, and once every 30 days, they get a break. Gehenna stops for them. They have Gehenna down on this earth. Gehenna stops for them once every 30 days on Rosh Chodesh. Because Rosh Chodesh, there's no, Rabbi Nachman teaches, there's no Gehenna like every other day. Rosh Chodesh, which is next week, right? Gehenna stops, and the people all, they suffer. But why do they suffer? Because they all have to admit that I did wrong. Right? You don't find people admitting that they did wrong. They always find an excuse. Right? So Korach admits that he did wrong every 30 days. But what's interesting about that is that the Gemara at the end of Sanhedrin has a whole discussion. Adas Korach Osad Lalus. Will the group of Korach, will they ascend after Mashiach comes in the future? Rabbi Eliezer says yes. Rabbi Akiva said no. Right? What's the proof of Rabbi Eliezer? There's a pasuk, Chana, when she gave birth to Shmuel, She said, Hashem memes u'machaya morid she'oil v'yo'al. Right? Hashem kills and he brings alive. He brings people down to the Sheol, to the depths, like Korach, and he brings them up. So this is Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva said no, but the Gemara says that it'll be like Rabbi Eliezer says. Korach will have a tikkun. Korach will have a rectification. Why? Where? The Arizal explains that we say Friday night in Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, we say the verse, Tzadik Katomor Yifrach. A tzaddik will blossom like a date palm, right? The last letter is tzaddik is a kuf, katomor is a resh, yifrach is a ches, make up the word korach. It says that korach too will have a rectification. So what's going on here really is, Reb Nosson explains in many places that Korach, his rebellious nature brought him to the level that he's going to argue against Moshe Rabbeinu. He's going to take Moshe Rabbeinu and he's going to make mincemeat out of him. Right? And that's the way you see it today with many non-religious. There are people who are non-religious. They just walked away from the religion. That's painful enough. But there are others who want to see the religion destroyed. And they work hard at it. Yair Lapid, right? What's his name? Lieberman, Avigdor Lieberman. They work very hard at destroying the religion, right? They too will have a rectification at the end. They too will somehow return to Hashem. If not in this lifetime, then the next lifetime. But everyone will have a tikkun. This is what Nosson brings. The biggest problem is that people, when we spoke about it last week, Shviras Kalim, the shattering of the vessels, right? When people do a sin, what they do is they shatter the vessel that they have to receive godliness, shatters. And you can't absorb anything in a broken vessel. You can't. You have to be able to put it together. A mitzvah is from the word. Thank you. Mitzvah is from the word sevet, which means to join together. Right? Every mitzvah that we do, we're speaking about the Shviras Kalim. Right? Every mitzvah that we do, it joins together the shattered shards of our vessels. Right? And Korach, having done what he did over 3,000 years ago, right, has a much longer time to rectify his vessel. But a lot of us that are wandering around in exile, we're not yet sure where we live and what we're doing and all that. All of this is all part of our being able to find our shards and do the mitzvahs and rectify them and bring everything up. So we said that Korach is the last letters of the words Tzadik, Katomor, Yifrach, Kuf, Reish, Ches, right? That the Rizal says that in the future, Korach will also rise up like a tzaddik, and it'll be rectified. And because that's the ultimate is that since every neshama comes from Hashem, and Hashem is good, no good will go to waste. So wherever there is good, here, Bulgaria, they want to learn and study Rabbi Nachman, right? Wherever there is good, you're going to find the tikkun. Eventually. It may not happen right away. Reb Nosson takes this further, just for us to understand the scope of it. What happens if a person comes back to this world and he's here to rectify his life? And what if he doesn't rectify it? What if he does more sins? Right? There's a guy, you ever hear of DreamWorks? Right? One of the three partners is a guy named David Geffen. Right? He's more of the music area, but David Geffen, a Jewish guy, he's one of the prime supporters of the gay movement. Right? What's going to happen to him? He's got so much money, and what's he doing with it? Right? Now, how could he have a rectification if he's doing so much damage? Reb Nosson explains that you take your shards, as we explained, you have a crystal that falls down, right? Remember that? And it shatters into, and then you take it and you shatter it further. When we meet up with our shards now, if I'm big enough, if I'm good enough, I take the mitzvah that I'm doing and I collect that shard and I rebuild it into a bigger shard. What if I'm an evil person? I shatter that shard further. I make it smaller. And if I do it again, the next reincarnation, I make it smaller. Eventually, I'm going to meet up with a shard I'm as big as that shard. That shard is very small, very tiny, but eventually my soul is going to jump into that shard. And that shard, that Kedusha that's in that shard, will help bring me back to tshuva. So Reb Nosson explains, and this is a really amazing thing, there are sometimes a person can't do tshuva until he reaches the lowest of the low. Can you imagine that? Right? No, a person has to first reach the lowest of the low in order to do tshuva, to reach that level. And here we have a Gemara in Shabbos. Nosson explains, on Erev Yom Kippur, we have the custom to do kaporos. We take the chicken or money and we let this be instead of me, right? It's a kapara. We say the verse, we recite a verse then from Eov, from Job. It says, Im yesh olav malach melitz echad mini olav. If the guy has one angel out of 1,000 that's going to say good about him, then we could redeem the soul. 1 out of 1,000, right? Not 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000. That means he has 999 parts that are evil. But if he's got one little tiny bit, that's a saving grace, 1 out of 1,000, what is it? 0.001, right? Is that what it is? Now, that little bit is enough to save the person. Right? Reb Nosson asks, by the way, he says, how? The guy is so evil. He says, because he's so evil, that's his biggest merit. Right? Merit is he's so evil. What do you want from the guy? What do you want from the guy? He's got all that evil in him. How do you expect anything in him? So if he does have one little drop of good, it's enough to bring him to the side of merit. And that's what happened with Korach. Korach was so great. His neshama was incredibly great. Right? And he went off the derech. He rebelled against Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? But he did have one thing about him. He did have some knowledge of Torah. He says, we all heard at Sinai. We all heard at Sinai that Hashem gave the Torah to us. Why it makes you better than me or anyone else? That's what Korach said. And the answer is that everyone has their place. Right? Everyone has the Arizal explains that all the souls are like connected to a big tree. It's called the tree of the souls. Excuse me. There's a trunk, that's Moshe Rabbeinu. From the trunk goes out various branches, major branches, very big branches, and then smaller branches go from the big branches, and then smaller branches go from them till they come to the end where they have just little twigs and leaves and whatnot. But everybody is a member of this tree. Everybody is at the feet of this tree, is connected to this tree. And everybody has his place on the tree. You may be a big branch, you may be a small branch. Karach was a big branch, but he wanted to cut it off from the limb, cut off that limb of the tree. So that's the lesson that we have from Korach. First thing is to understand, like they had last week, we spoke about it, the Meraglim. Their souls were so great, they were graded in Eretz Yisrael. The sanctity of Eretz Yisrael is incredible. And these souls were even greater than Eretz Yisrael. But they had to learn to live their life according to where they are on the tree. They have to learn to adjust to where they are. Every person has to learn to, I'd love to be the biggest tzaddik, or the biggest Talmud Chacham, or the wealthiest person, or the this, or the that. He says, none of that. Your place is already on the tree. You could improve yourself. You could become greater. You could somehow, there are twigs and leaves that grow to be very important. You could do that to yourself. You could become greater than you are. But you have to know where your place is. You have to know that there is a hierarchy. There is a tzaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu. What was Moshe Rabbeinu? He was selfish. He took something for himself. He said, in this week's parsha, he said to Korach, Lo chamor echad mehem nasosi, v'lo hari yosi asachad mehem. I didn't take one mule from them. I didn't take anything from them. I didn't do bad to any one of them. Right? He's not like a regular prime minister who does whatever he wants. He rides roughshod, is that what they call it? He rides roughshod over all the people, does whatever he wants. Right? No, he wasn't. He said, I didn't take anything from them. I didn't ask them for anything. I didn't come to them for anything. Right? That's a leader. David HaMelech was such a leader. All right, let's go back to Moshe Rabbeinu for a moment. When the Jews made the golden calf, right? Hashem tells them, all right, I'm going to wipe them out and I'm going to make you into a great nation. Right? What's wrong with that, right? You'll be the great nation. You'll be that Jewish nation. He says, you're not going to touch the hair, saying it to Hashem. You're not going to touch the hair on one of their heads. They all have to have forgiveness for what they did. If not, get rid of me. If I'm their leader, I'm responsible for them. I have to make sure that they're okay. David HaMelech, when the king of Ammon died, he sent messengers to the prince of Ammon to send condolences. Right? The prince's advisors told him King David wants to spy out the land. So what did he do? Instead of accepting the condolences, he tore their garments and he shaved off half their beard. Right? King David said, you're not going to wipe the floor. You're not going to embarrass my people. You're not going to humiliate my people. That doesn't work with me. I'm the leader. He went and wiped the floor with Bnei Ammon. He went against the war. Right? They lost. They lost, if I'm not mistaken, 40,000 in one day, or whatever, 40,000 people. The idea is a leader is one who gives his all for the people, right? What are the people supposed to do? What is Korach and the others supposed to do? Give their all to the leader, right? Obey the law and try and follow through what happens, okay? And this is the lesson of this week. This is the lesson of Korach, that we have to learn to believe in the tzaddik, believe that there is a tzaddik who is there for my benefit, not for his benefit, for my benefit, right? And he will work with me so that at the end, even Korach, who was swallowed alive by the earth, will also have a redemption. Right? That's the lesson of the week. Understand that. and know, and then Be'ezah Hashem, it'll happen very, very soon. Mashiach will come, and we'll all be redeemed. Amen.